Hello, everyone. We are so thankful that so many of you are here with us tonight. I'm Sangeetha Rayapati. I'm the president of the school board, joined by Kate Schaefer, our vice president, and Dr. Rachel Savage, our superintendent. And for those of you that are new to the community conversations, this is a series we started last year, a whole year and a half ago now, I believe, just so we could really stay in touch with what's on the top of people's minds, of families, friends, of students in the district. And it's been really helpful so far for the board to hear directly from parents. And we're also open to email and phone calls and what have you, but this has been a good venue and very timely given our shift to dealing with the pandemic last March. So we have established a few rules of engagement or ground rules for these meetings. We really appreciate if you can keep yourselves muted. It doesn't have to be video muted, but if you're at least audio muted during the time you're not speaking, that helps everybody hear all the questions and the conversation. And then if you just really make sure to let others speak if you've already spoken, we're happy to hear from you again. We just want to make sure as many voices are heard in the conversation. And I'll just, before I forget, and I'll probably remind you at the end, we have another of these scheduled in March, but it'll be over a lunch hour. So we can maybe catch some other people who could make that, but can't make it in the evening. So with that, we will open the floor for discussion. We know as a board that plans for increasing in-person learning is on the top of a lot of people's minds, families' minds. It's on the top of ours. I mentioned last night in our school board meeting that 6 out of 7 of us on the board have students in our schools at all levels. I have one high school, one middle school, one elementary. And so we're very keenly aware of what everyone's going through because we're experiencing it as well. But we certainly don't want to limit our conversation to that one topic tonight. But just open the floor, and Dr. Savage, if you have anything to add to that intro, we'll turn it to you.
Sure, thank you. Welcome everybody and good evening. It's awesome to have this much participation and just direct communication opportunities with our families. So thank you so much. I think there's 88 of you, which is fantastic. We are happy to give kind of a little update as to where things are at, but don't want to make any assumptions. So we'll open the floor to first questions or comments or concerns or, just inquiring minds want to know type stuff.
I can say, feel free to use the raise hand function. Feel free to type the question in the chat. We have Greg Green helping us with the chat. We just want to keep that for questions though. And we have our conversation together on here if possible. I see Key Fam raising a hand.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Sorry, these are the headphones they brought me up, so.
Very nice. Very nice.
All right, so I have a concern. I get that people want to get the kids back in school. Trust me, I want to get my kids out of this house and back in school as well, just as much as everybody else. But I'm very concerned because we have one of our kids has health concerns. We also have a family member at home with health concerns. And I know that there are several other kids or family members of theirs at home that have health concerns. So my concern is that I don't feel like enough people are taking that seriously. Yes, we want to get the kids back in. Yes, they do better when they're learning from their teachers who are trained to teach them and to be around their peers for the social aspect. My oldest really, really thrives on being around the other kids. So I get that. But at the same time, I feel like not enough people are taking health concerns as seriously as they could be. So that is my concern.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And you are right. While vaccinations are on the horizon for our educators, nearly all of our educators have had their first round. Those types of vaccinations for families who would want that for their kids are a good 3 months out. So we still are in a pandemic, and those health risks are very real. So I'm glad that you brought that up. A couple of things that I would want to clarify for everybody is the full remote option is going to remain intact for families at a minimum through the end of this school year. And I know the State Department of Ed is tossing this around about what it looks like in the future for school districts. We know there is a population of students that have been successful in remote learning. A lot have not, but some have. So we haven't heard anything formal down the road. We're just kind of wanting and waiting to hear about that in terms of the State Department of Ed. But we want you to know that if you are concerned, and in kind of reviewing some of our initial survey results, I can see some of you still are, that full remote option will remain intact. And even as we move forward in implementing our increasing blended learning, we will make sure that those safety measures are not relaxed. We will continue to have social distancing, masks, sanitizing, all of it. Working on special protocols around lunch to accommodate for families that would have those concerns. So I'm glad you brought that up, and we are not going to take any sort of relaxed stance on those safety mitigations. And actually, as Sangeetha mentioned, that was a topic of review at our board meeting last night as well.
Next person.
I have a question from iPad that asked, what metrics trigger more in-person learning?
Excellent question. I would direct any folks after our meeting or now or whatever to our district website. And there is a return to learn tab across the top. And there's a number of different resources there. And one of those resources are metrics for decision making. I'm glad that you asked this. This was developed early on in the school year, last fall, I believe, as we realized that this was going to endure for the entire school year. And we kind of have it in a very simple red light, green light type format. If these things happen, that would be red light, and we would have to close more. If you recall back in the fall, where we might have an outbreak at one particular school, that would be one reason why we would have to decrease in-person learning. But towards the second half of that sheet are the green lights. Those are the ones we're excited about and focusing on now. Things like if the positivity rates in our region, which is region 2, anybody can look those up. I watch it on the daily. You can just look up IDPH regional metrics. You can see how our region is doing. It's pretty big. It also includes Peoria and things like that, but it also has our county. So our region and our county are both well down below now, almost 4%. It fluctuates daily, but we are now well below the warning level of 8%, single digits, and hovering down in that 4% range, which means we really need to be considering rolling out plans to increase our in-person learning. And that's exactly what we are doing. Also, when the percentage of students that want remote learning begins to decrease, that is also happening. And also our staff having access to the vaccinations. So we're moving in the right direction. That's very, very exciting.
Jessica has her hand raised. Jessica, would you like to unmute yourself, please?
Yes, thank you so much. I was just wondering, what is the exact plan for the rollout of returning to more in-person learning?
Excellent. I was waiting for someone to ask.
I thought I'd help you out there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I didn't want to make any assumptions. If any of you were able to log into our board meeting last night, you hopefully were able to hear that we are all ready to move into this next step of the process. The Board of Education gave great insight and guidance to us. And most importantly, your voice, your input from the pre-planning survey has really guided us to get to this point. We have nearly 2,000 survey responses. The survey will remain open for the rest of this week. And we left it open for multiple responses per person in the event you wanted to say something different about each of your different kids, as our other parent spoke about. My goal is to roll out communication to parents next week, where we are able to phase in the 3 weeks of March before spring break, a certain population of kids. And then after spring break, the next big move to where we can look at implementing, extending the length of the school day and possibly looping in-person time on Friday. What you are going to see continue is we cannot relax the safety rules all the way through the end of this school year. It's not allowed, and it's not a risk that we're willing to take for our kids or for our staff. So we have to try to be as far apart as possible, and the masks and all of that will stay. The second thing that will stay, as we mentioned, is full remote learning options for parents. So we will be sure that whatever schedule we finalize, and again, that should happen by the end of this week, so we can roll it out to you all next week, needs to be sure to have time built into the school day for our remote learning students. We respect our parents' choices, and we know that our parents choose that option for a variety of different reasons. And it's not for us to decide what's a good reason or what's a bad reason. So you will see that whatever schedule we choose, it is not possibly able to be 5 days a week for full school days as much as we would like it. But it's gonna look a lot different and a lot more than what it looks right now. And lastly, what I will say is we wanna make sure that you all have a final voice. So we are working on options for, if we extend the length of the school day, give you a couple of options to choose on that. And if we are able to loop in-person learning on Friday, we want you to be able to vote on that too. So expect one more opportunity for parent feedback. While this process takes a little bit of time and sometimes we want it to go faster, I'm glad that we're doing it incremental steps that allow your voice as a primary driver for the decisions that we're making.
I see two more hands raised. Mr.
Yeah.
Green.
Yeah, if Jay Zakara would like to unmute themselves and ask.
I'm just wondering, kind of bridging or continuing on with what your previous discussion was if you are going to potentially, or it's been discussion about bringing elementary school students back in more of a full-time capacity before the middle school and high school age students?
Spot on question. Your head is in the right place. We definitely acknowledge the challenges that our younger learners are facing. It's difficult for all kids, and secondary kids have their own set of challenges, as we all know, but we are absolutely focusing on our youngest learners first in our rollout. And again, I hope to have everything finalized by the end of this week so that we can roll that out in full parent communication next week. But yes, you will see some of that in place. Great question.
Okay, would iPad like to unmute and ask their question? Okay, we'll come back to iPad. I do have a question of what is the school board's position on the culturally responsive teaching and learning standards rule?
That's a good question. I know that that's out for debate right now in the Illinois legislature. We have not had a group discussion about that. And our job on this in the school district is to, Rachel, what is the word? We have to follow the policies that are given to us. It's board policy, or I'm blanking on the word, Rachel. What's the?
Yeah, I can piggyback on that. One thing that I think that not everyone is super clear on yet is, first of all, these standards would not come into play for multiple years, and they are not designed to be a part of K-12 curriculum. So they are going to impact colleges and universities and teacher prep programs more so immediately than what we're teaching in our schools and how we're teaching in our schools. So it absolutely will be a focus, but we've only received them, as Sangeetha mentioned, in draft form, and we have received no additional indication about when professional development will be rolled out or how this will kind of trickle down. But right now we're a couple of years out from implementation, And the primary focus of these standards will be teacher prep programs in colleges. But I can see them coming into play as we hire teachers down the road. That will become more of a focus of traits and skills and capabilities that we will be able to see in our hires more than before because they had been exposed to this new learning. So we're excited. It's just very new, and we are still in just the initial review of the draft.
I think it's good for us on the board, Kate. You can add to what you want to hear. But what I don't think everyone always understands the role the school board has, right? In these situations, that we get policy from the state that's vetted by lawyers, and then we vote to adopt those policies. But the practice is we can't not do what the State Board of Education says. That's sort of that's why I said what I said previously. It's we don't have a stance on that at the moment. It's too new, but also it has to get vetted through the whole process before it comes to any school board in the state at all for any kind of formal adoption of anything. It's not to say that you can't disagree with something coming from the state, but just with public funds and the rules and regs, there's less control over that than people might realize.
And I just double checked the implementation date. It's October of 2025. So we have a little bit of time to work through that, but it's exciting. I'm pleased to see this movement. Good question.
I would like to say I am getting a lot of messages through chat. If anyone is sending messages through there, if they'd want to use the raise hand function to get them in there a little sooner, please do so. I do have a question from JW saying, will it still be hybrid learning schedule, meaning less students in the classroom at one time?
That's a good question. The current status of our parent survey indicates that by fourth quarter, when parents were asked to indicate what they would choose for their child for fourth quarter, about 70% are saying they want full-time, as many days of the week, as many hours of the week as are safely able. The other 15% is saying they want to stay full remote, and the other 15%, that gets us to 100, is asking to be able to keep their blended learning model. So I believe that we will have some flexibilities in place to where a parent can choose to keep their child on blended. That being said, I'm not certain that it's gonna look the same. If 70% are attending 4 days a week for some of the day or however long the school day ends up, and an additional 15% are full remote, I'm not certain what that blended will look like, but we want to make sure that that flexibility remains. So as a parent, if you need to send your child some days and keep your child home some days, we want to try to accommodate that. But that being said, it might not look exactly how it looks right now. It will sort of evolve as our groups of learning shift, I guess is the easiest way. So we want to have that flexibility, but it might look different fourth quarter.
Okay, Judith Capel had a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, thank you. Well, I just wanted to thank Dr. Savage and our school board for putting these on for us. I really appreciate it. And I do have something that will lead to a question, but I hope I can just kind of make a comment on our situation. And as the first speaker said, everyone has a different situation. That is what makes this so difficult to manage. So I can only speak for ours, but one, I was a little concerned at the wording of some of the questions on the survey. I feel like the way that some of the questions were worded would lead to some of the answers being overwhelmingly skewed in one direction. So that was one concern that I had. Safety is a big concern, and in our family, we've had to, of course, like everyone, try to make the right choice between what is best for our kids academically and what works safety wise. And it's sort of the situation where I feel like whatever choice I make, it's the wrong choice. Like I don't have a right choice to pick. And that makes it hard, but everyone's doing their best to figure that out. And for us, doing the hybrid has worked pretty well. And it balances out in the sense that I feel like with the class sizes as they currently stand, and the safety protocols put in place, and them going a limited amount of time each week, while I still might be anxious about it, I can live with it and we do it. And it really does help, especially my second grader academically. So I really would like to know more about the flexibility that you're trying to offer in terms of how parents are going to be able to send their kids to school, in addition to how you will manage such a big safety mitigation with PPE, possible ventilation stuff, just class size issues. I know there's a lot to chew on there. And then finally, with the full remote options, you know, we've done it all. We all know the challenges to each. And with my elementary school kid, there's still so much that they have to do online. And I understand that the standards from the state are not flexible, and there is a certain expectation. But because we rely so heavily on online spelling programs, online math programs, it just ends up being too much time on the computer. So I'd be looking for, some sort of possible change in that regard. So you certainly don't have to answer everything that I brought up. I'm kind of just blurting it all out. But I'll just keep my piece at that. Thank you.
Let me see what I can recall back and remember that. First of all, regarding the safety, we stand with you on that. PPE is not an issue. We've had some decent CARES Act money that we've been able to make sure that we've got dividers at our tables, masks for everybody that needs them, sanitizer, thermometers, biohazard fogging systems for our schools. All of that, I would say we are in a good place when it comes to PPE. Our teachers and our staff have not had to go without. So that's something that we place high value on and will continue on. When it comes to the computer resources, you're right, it's a lot. That's why I was thinking, and again, we're still finalizing this week, so I don't want to say in the event it still fluctuates a little bit before we roll this out next week. But that's why I was saying before that if your child stays blended, it's probably going to look a little bit different because more will be happening in person, as if the group A students and the group B students are able to combine if space allows in the classroom, as an example. So I think less of the focus will be on the computer. I'm not going to say it's going to go all the way away this year because of our kids on different models, but you have valid points, and we want to focus on that face-to-face stuff as much as possible. And when we do kind of roll out the next phase, we are going to put a heavy focus on social and emotional supports and save academics for second. We're going to be teaching, your kids are going to be learning, but right now our kids have been through so much, and our teachers and staff have been through so much that, it's not going to just jump right in and be business as usual. We have kids that have not ever met their teacher. We have kids at the secondary and at the high school that don't even know where their classes physically are. So I think starting in small phases, allowing people to reconnect at a human level is probably what's most important right now. And a lot of kids have endured a lot of trauma in these last several months. You are all amazing, wonderful parents that are able to dedicate time and be involved in your kids' education and be there for them. But unfortunately, not every kid is having that same level of support. And so just getting them back, letting them know that we're there and we care for them, that's going to be our big focus. And I think that true academic recovery phase then can begin more concretely at the beginning of Q4, which is at the end of March. So hopefully I hit on a couple of those for you.
Okay, next we're gonna go with Tara. Tara, do you want to unmute yourself?
Okay. Thank you, guys. Just a few things, and everyone's safety and everything, is definitely top priority, and kids' health and teachers' health. But I'm going to come from it at the aspect of a parent whose kid has an IEP and a disability. And I feel like these kids have been left behind from the beginning. I have a kindergartner who in no way, shape, or form is being prepared for how school really is or what is to come. I have a kindergartner who our relationship is hurting because of having to do so much at home, who needs the structure, who needs the routine of knowing this is what we do every day. I am terrified of him not being ready for first grade, who's got a younger sister hot on his heels coming into school next year. I know it gets said that parents' feedback is looked at and it's appreciated and it's wanted, but at the same time, as this parent, I feel like our feedback gets put onto deaf ears. I don't feel like parents who have these special kids, and it's not just the kids with IEPs, my 5th grader, who he's not struggling academically, but is struggling in his own way. But I feel like those kids who need that extra bit, I feel like we're falling on deaf ears. I don't feel like anybody is fighting for them.
Thank you for sharing that, Tara. We are definitely hearing all of that. And actually behind the scenes, there's a lot of talk about equity among all kinds of different learners. You might not hear it all publicly, but I think Dr. Savage can attest to trying to find a balance between all of the needs that all different groups that are impacted by the plan that we put in place have. So, a night like tonight, we're really focused on family feedback, parental feedback, but Dr. Savage has planning meetings with the teachers groups quite often. So they're called solution meetings, right? If I can share that title. And then there's staff that are support staff that are there. So I hear what you're saying, and we know that those children need as much support as possible, regardless of what learning plan we have. But I just wanted you to know those conversations do part of it.
I guess I'm just afraid of, because we're talking about, pushing it to 4th quarter as far as more in-time learning. Then it's going to be, well, then there was spring break and people need to quarantine for that. And I'm just afraid it's going to keep getting pushed out and pushed out and pushed out, instead of it being like we're not too far into 3rd quarter. Let's try 4 half days and ease into it. And if that works, fine, go from there. I'm just afraid there's always going to be something that keeps getting it pushed back, that isn't giving us parents the opportunity to make the choice for our kids to be there, and giving these kids the opportunity to be there.
Sure. So
If I could,
go ahead, Dr. Savage.
if I could piggyback on that. And Tara, thank you. Thank you for bringing this up. First of all, I don't want any family to be feeling this way and having these experiences. So I apologize for that. That's number one. Number two, you're in the right place to be passing along this information. The next, I would say, I would encourage any family of a child with that qualifies for special services to be reaching out to your case manager and your principal immediately. I am aware of individualized plans where students are getting the extra support that they need and rolling out students getting more in-person time based on their disability right now. That has been a priority dating back many weeks ago. So we can talk after, or you can call me tomorrow, but I would encourage you to reach out to your principal. And if you send me an email with your school, I can get on top of that immediately, because that should not be the case. Our students with special services, that rollout has already been happening. And also, I just want to, I want to relieve your concern that we're going to push it back. That's not going to happen. And I want to relieve your concern that we're going to push back rolling out for elementary students. That's not going to happen. And I also just want you to know that I don't want any parent on this call or any parent that you talk to be worried about your child being left behind. No child in the Moline-Coal Valley School District is going to be punished for a global pandemic. No child is going to be punished for not having had the opportunity to learn all the skills. We have no intention of retaining a bunch of kids. We're not going to focus on the deficit. We're going to focus on saying, hey, where is your child at next year in first grade when he or she promotes on? And we're going to meet that child where they are at and go from there. I want every parent to rest assured that this academic recovery isn't going to happen this semester, and it's not even going to happen this summer. It's going to take a couple of years, and every school in the nation is going to be adjusting to meet this. But I don't want us to be feeling the pressure or you to be worried about that. We are not going to let that happen to any child here. And I'm so glad that you shared your story with us, Tara.
Rachel, can I just say something? One of the things that I think about too is that your child is very important to you, but every child in the classroom is dealing with the same things. So those kids that are in kindergarten who now don't have a clue how they're, how to get to school and what happens on, what happens in recess and things like that, their fellow classmates are in the same boat. So it won't be like your child is a step behind everyone else. And those first grade teachers or the next grade teachers are going to have to take a step back and help those kids get ready and learn, those things. So while I'm not just, saying, oh, don't worry about it, but think of it as at least it's not like your child didn't have an opportunity to go to school for 4 years. It's just everybody in the classroom is going to be in the same boat.
We've been using the analogy of, we always say about kindergarten, kindergarten, you just take them as they are, you get them where they're at, and then you move them forward. So now every grade is going to be like kindergarten for a while. We're going to have kids coming in all different levels and abilities, and our teachers are really working on adjusting that. We are finalizing plans for a very robust summer school opportunity for those families that want their child to have additional engagement. We know some families are going to be like, we are out, we're going to put this Chromebook under the couch and not look at it for 3 months. I get that. But we want to make sure that for those that are wanting that engagement, we're going to have it. And it's going to be at different times to accommodate different family schedules. We're working with our teachers right now to see, maybe we can offer a program right after school gets out and a traditional piece in the middle, and maybe a jump start right before school starts. So we're working on all of that to address those concerns that families have, but with the caveat that don't feel the pressure that it has to be solved or it's going to be solved. And we certainly are trying. We don't want to put that pressure on our students because they're already, feeling a lot of pressure, I think. So we're working with teachers to just ease back on that heaviness for kids. It's not their fault, and we just want to move them forward and take them as they are.
Okay, I have the next question from James Charbonneau. If you want to unmute yourself.
Hey, well, thanks. So it's kind of funny timing because I'm a marriage and family therapist that's working in the area, and hearing, I believe Tara was her name, just the struggle that she is going through. I have to say a lot of families are entirely going through, and not only the families, but the kids. So I guess my question was initially, because I had moved here in the middle of the pandemic, not great timing, but a lot of students who are older and are missing out on life events, like prom and games and social interaction, that's really starting to affect their mental health. So I guess my question is, how are we going about to address that? Are there a list of community resources that parents can access in the area?
That's a great, I think that if there isn't a list out now, we will definitely work with our administration that can help get that out. I haven't checked the website in a little bit, but Dr. Savage, maybe you know. But I do know that our counseling staff has been working really, really hard to make sure we're not missing those pieces for students who are really struggling with those issues. And Dr. Savage mentioned earlier that we're going to social emotional issues in these phases that we go into. Am I remembering that correctly, Dr. Savage?
Yeah, you pose incredibly valid points, and we hear you. And I'm an eternal optimist. It kind of gets me in trouble sometimes, but I have hope that we're going to be able to end the year with some of these positive things a little bit better than we were able to end the year last year. I'm hoping that we can do those things, but we've been partnering with agencies in the community. Youth Service Bureau has been a fantastic partner. Teletherapy and connections have been happening with students. Our counselors have done amazing reach out. We have logged well over 1,000 home visits and well child checks, but it's never going to be enough to replace in school full time around all of their peers. So, we just want to get that back as soon as possible. But I'm glad that you highlighted that. We can't underscore that. That's what kids need first. And I believe the academics will come. So thank you for highlighting that for us.
Okay, I'm going to call on iPad. Are you? I think we tried before.
Yep, I'm on now.
Okay, great.
So I listened to last night's meeting. I sent in some questions. I heard the meeting. I heard it stated that 70% of parents surveyed want their children back in person and want it to happen now. With the CDC and other health organizations recommending in-person learning, coupled with the very low rates in our community, what is Moline's hesitation to get children back into school in person now?
Great question. We are not hesitant, I would say, but unfortunately, we are still tasked with the 6 feet rule. And I want to highlight this for a second. So I'm so glad that you brought this up. IDPH and the CDC have put forth language that has been vetted by the State Department of Ed, and this is what they said you shall do, not you can do if you want, but you shall do. And one of those mitigations is 6 feet distance, comma, when possible and wherever feasible. And so those little phrases are what districts around the state are interpreting differently. I can tell you 53% of the districts in Illinois have not been in school since last March. So I'm grateful for the in-person time that we've been able to have. Some of our neighboring districts in the region on the Illinois side, again, Iowa has a completely different set of rules. So sadly, the distance is so close, but the rules are so different, and we are stuck by that. So for us, as the largest district in the region, we've got 850 districts in the state, and we're like number 24 biggest. So we can't possibly fit every student in the classroom and be socially distant. It's not possible. Our smaller districts in the region have smaller enrollments. And there is also, and I don't ever want to judge other districts or call anybody out, but different districts have very different interpretations of what 6 feet mean. And we have kept safety as a high priority. I hope you hear that as a thread tonight, which is why you see Moline, the largest, and Rock Island, the second largest, struggling with that 6 feet the most. And it's not a hesitation. We want this. The CDC says we can do this, but our state health department says we cannot have, 30 kids in a classroom 1 foot apart. And so that's where we're struggling. And I could say, hey, 500 teachers, we're not going to follow the 6 feet rule. We're going to get everybody in. I want that. Like, it literally keeps me up at night and makes me sick to my stomach. And my kids are in college. I don't even have little kids at home dealing with all the struggles that you guys are dealing with. But that's the feat. That's the rule that's holding us back to full implementation. Governor Pritzker said, you can't have your schools wide open, full-time, all students 5 days a week until he moves our region to phase 5, which means the vaccine is readily available. That's not the case right now. I mean, we got lucky with our numbers, but there are a lot of educators that still haven't had their first dose. So I am so glad you asked that. And I just want everybody to know that we are not hesitant. I have a plan on this whiteboard that I keep looking at that I'm really ready to get rolled out to all of you next week that shows our incremental phase into getting more kids back with a first emphasis on our youngest learners, all the way down from tape measures in the classroom. It is no lie, all the way down from tape measures. We've been hauling furniture out of the classrooms so that we can fit more kids in and still keep distance. So you're seeing a difference among our regions because the smaller districts have smaller enrollments and they can get their kids in and still be distant. And other districts have their own interpretation of what 6 feet mean, hinging on that whenever feasible. And we've just chosen the safety route on that, as much as that is difficult.
Can I add to that? It's just a reminder that part of the reason we shut down the way we did or moved to fully online back in November wasn't because our kids were the predominant proportion of the positive cases. It was staff. And so now that a majority of our staff has gotten the first dose, and we know they're able to get the second dose very shortly, we will be able to push farther faster because that piece of the context has changed. So our previous semester's percentage of positive cases was dominated by staff. And we feel we can't offer a quality education without the proper staff in place. So it's again, back to the multiple perspectives that are balanced. But definitely Dr. Savage heard me loud and clear on Friday. We got to get everybody back as soon as possible.
There's a lot of different narratives. There's a lot of narratives that we need more money to open. That's not true. We are properly funded. We've had emergency CARES Act money to fund our PPE, our fogging, our plexiglass, all of it. We need relaxation on that rule. And
I believe I heard last night that only 15 classrooms, you cannot reach the 6 feet requirement with 100% of the kids returning. Is that correct?
That's just elementary.
Great, okay. Great, great there. But you're right. I did a poll of our 10 elementary schools, and I have a spreadsheet of what the number would be when we combine A and B, and it's going to happen, and it's going to happen soon. I promise you. When we combine A and B, our group A kids and our group B kids, we're not including the kids that are full remote, keep in mind. Out of 131 elementary classrooms, all but 15, so that's just over 90, no, just under 90% of our classrooms, we can combine A and B and match that safety distance rule. So you are going to see that rolled out very soon. We still will accommodate for remote learning. So Friday is yet to be seen. We would like, and we are planning for looping in-person learning on Fridays as well for fourth quarter. But some of these things that you're talking about right now, you're going to see rolled out first. And we have all hands on deck to figure out how we can resolve those 15 classrooms. So it's going to happen. I mean, we are tape measures, we are moving furniture out, we're moving classrooms, we're using the cafeterias, we're using the gyms. I mean, we are just totally as out of the box as we can to make this happen. So I just want you to know that it's important to us as it is to you.
How about moving from half days to full-time days, for A and B?
Great question. You are going to have an option to vote on how we extend the school day. Excuse me. We're narrowing it down to a couple of options. Again, it can't be an absolute full length school day. And you are finding that in our other neighboring districts as well. They're having an early out, they're having a late arrival, and they still have time dedicated to remote learning because every district, as required by the State Department of Ed, will continue to have a population of students on full-time remote learning. But that being said, we are going to put forth some options on how we should extend the day. And I would be looking for that coming very soon. And those changes would begin fourth quarter, an extension of the school day and how we are able to loop in Friday for in-person. So great questions. You guys are on point with what you're thinking in terms of how we're planning.
So is there any way to expedite any of these prior to fourth quarter based on what parents' surveys want?
Yes. Yep. I'm sorry. Maybe I wasn't clear on that. As soon as we get the second shot for our 600 staff, and that date is slated for February 22nd, look for it to start very shortly after that.
27th, Dr. Savage.
What did I say?
Second.
Yeah, the second shot clinic will be at Wharton on February 27th. Thank you, Sangeeta. And then look for that rollout to start very shortly after that. But look for the plan to be rolled out next week.
We have to get to a couple of people who haven't gotten to speak yet. Thank you for those questions.
Nathan had a question he wanted to ask. He's able to unmute.
Yep. Okay. So some of that answered there right now, but I have a follow-up for that, just that last question there, and then my original question. So my follow-up to that is, if there's going to be times, I'm concerned about teacher burnout as well. So I'm curious about what the expectations are of teachers that are having to basically work a full workday and then also try to do remote type of things. Will they be live streaming classes? Will they be expected to work very late into the evening? I'm just concerned about teachers getting burned out. And then my follow-up question is about earlier, we were talking about the cultural response bill. And if that's passed, will there be access to a parent's general overview of what it is and what it means? I've seen the bill and I've seen a lot of misinformation being spread as well. So I just want to make sure that it's a kind of clear, concise response to what's been going on.
Awesome questions. I think at the state level right now, those standards are open for parent or for stakeholder feedback. We have only received them in draft form as well. I have it right here with my highlighter. I'm halfway through it, but they are not slated to be in effect until 2025. So there is time, I think, for rollout and community feedback on those at the state level. They have not come down to us yet in any sort of formalized way. So great question. And also, I cannot thank you enough for saying that about teachers. They have been complete rock stars. They have adapted and they have grown and just done such amazing things. And I'm glad you brought that up. The two things that I would say about that is, I think live streaming of classes is not going to go away, or at least recordings of lessons being available. They're getting good at it now. And what seems so scary for a lot of them, they're amazing and they're getting good at it. I don't see that going away for the remainder of this year. And also, as you so importantly pointed out, they still have to have time within the contract day to address the students at home in full-time remote learning. We cannot ask them to do that after their day ends. So that is one of the primary reasons why we can extend beyond the current dismissal time, but we still have to take into very serious account, whether it be that last part of the afternoon each day, or however it ends up that you all decide for Friday, that time does need to be held sacred for them, because we're asking them to do many different jobs at once. So I'm so glad that you pointed that out. Thank you.
Okay, Greg, a few more people that haven't spoken. I think we have 10 minutes left, so we'll see how many people we can get in. I see a Danielle and a Tessa that haven't spoken yet, so maybe one of those could unmute and ask their question.
I just had a question about the last survey that was sent out. It said that we would either have 2 full days or 4 half days, and we got 2 half days. So how can we even trust that the next survey is going to come out and we're going to get what the parents want? Because most parents voted for 2 full days of school, and we have 2 half days. So I understand if you couldn't do lunch, then they should have never had the vote for 2 full days.
Are you referring to the survey that was back in July?
Yeah.
Because the plan in place is, oops, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering why, like a new survey, how can us parents trust that we're going to really get what is voted for, when last time they said that 2 full days was what majority wanted, and we ended up with 2 half days?
Well, great question. I'm happy to put the survey results on the website. I can, Scout's honor, tell you 75% of parents chose the plan that we have had, and 75% of teachers and staff chose the plan that we have.
But I guess I thought the plan was for 2 full days of school.
No, I can send you the results in the survey, but I don't want anybody to think that that would happen. That's not going to happen. We will go with what the majority wants, and I promise you that we did. 75% chose the plan. In fact, I thanked God at that when that survey closed, because it made it really easy. And I think that board meeting, it might have been recorded. I'm sure anybody can go back and look at it. I said the right answer has risen to the top. 75% of all stakeholders chose this plan. But I certainly don't want anybody to feel that way. So email me, I'll send it to you.
Okay, I guess I was just under the assumption that when it came out as 2 half days where kids would go in the morning, or 4 half days where the kids would go in the mornings and different kids would go in the afternoon, and then the other days choice would have been 2 full days where they went Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, Thursday. So I guess that was just the confusion there. Was it supposed to be full days or half days?
No worries at all.
Thank you so much. Greg, can we hear from Danielle next?
Yep. Danielle, if you want to unmute.
I was just wanting to piggyback kind of on what Tara was saying about the kids at the IEP. I have 2 kids that are probably on the other end of the spectrum and are a little bit more advanced. My high school student has learned from remote learning that now he doesn't feel like he needs to go to college, and he doesn't need to or the schoolwork is so unimportant and all of this stuff. When he is in AP classes and he's in honors classes, he's so disinterested in school right now that it's a struggle, and it is affecting our relationship as well. And my 9-year-old has now said that he wants to quit school until the COVID is over because he's so bored. So, I mean, I understand that it is affecting kids with special needs as well, and probably more, but it also affects the kid. It's affecting every kid, but it affects the more advanced ones also. Academically, it's probably going to affect my older son's college career now too. So
thank you for sharing that story. The only thing that I can say is I hear you and I agree with you, and I affirm your family story. Thank you for sharing that. I can tell you that superintendents did not want to have incomplete as an option for a grade. We fought against that because if we don't have the expectation of students to complete their work to get the grade at the high school level, which means they get the credit, which means they're on track for graduation. So we fought to make sure that we did not have to do that this year. We were required to do it last year. Sorry, I was getting a little bit of feedback there. So, I mean, that was one piece that we did to fight against that for student motivation. We just hope that getting them back in school can get them readjusted and back to that. So thank you for sharing that story.
I'm also a little concerned about the half day, going back for 5 half days or 4 half days or whatever, if that ends up being an option, because I am a working parent and I've had to already adjust my schedule significantly to be able to give my kids rides home from school. I work in Bettendorf. It's not like I can take my lunch and come home to pick up from 2 different schools and take them home and then go back to work. So I'm having to take vacation time right now in order to take time off to pick up my kids from school. And since Moline doesn't have a busing system, it's going to be very difficult for parents to accommodate a half day, 4 days out of the week.
Thank you for sharing that. Our transportation system is unique in Moline. As you know, I'm learning, being in my 2nd year here, but we have partnered. We do have a transportation system through Metrolink, and they have designed school-based routes specifically for us and would be adjusting those school-based routes. They've adjusted them as we've adjusted our plans. So I know that is a bit of an inconvenience, and I totally get that. That is a valid concern. That's why I'm hoping that when we are able to extend the length of the day, we still offer that option. If a parent needs to come and get their child, that they're allowed to do that. So we're trying to put forth, as somebody said at the beginning of the meeting, which really just encompassed all of it, there's so many different needs, and to have, 7,300 students on different plans is a bit of a challenge logistically, but we're hoping to keep some of these flexibilities in place to be able to accommodate families like yourself that have to pick up at certain times. It's not gonna be ideal or perfect across the board, but we're gonna try to hold on to some of those flexibilities to meet some of those needs that you shared.
Okay, I'd like to call on Jessica, if she can unmute.
And this is probably going to be our last one, because as we've done with our previous meetings, we really keep to this 1 hour just to respect everyone's schedule. So we appreciate if you have follow-up questions or your question wasn't able to be answered. I know Dr. Savage is really good at communicating with people, and you can always shoot an email to Kate or myself as well. So Jessica, please.
I just wanted to do a follow-up about the rollout of the possibly back 4 days a week, or the A and B groups. I was wondering if you'd be able to, or willing to, share your thought process of determining the implementation of that, and the reasoning behind having Jane Addams go back to 4 days a week or 3 days a week next week, and not in allowing or having any of the other elementaries chosen.
Yeah, you bet. What you're going to see on the communication that comes out next week is that I have assigned that school as a 7-day early implementation pilot. And the reason I'm doing that is because that school has had proportionately the highest amount of remote learners this entire school year, different than every single other school. So I have assigned them, and working directly with the principal, a 7-day implementation early rollout pilot, of which we will have district leadership there on site each day of those 7 days before everybody else will start. I've asked that principal to provide a report to the Board of Education on February 22nd, after they would be 3 days in. And then also she will be providing a formal report of lessons learned, what to do, what not to do, to all of the principals 2 times, at the end of next week and then at the end of the week after. It is the equivalent of 7 days, and it's going to be an intense observation, if you will, only made for that exception because they have the highest percentage of remote learners. So that too will be in the communication rollout. And we need to learn what works and what doesn't, so that we can alleviate and get ahead of any of those mistakes before we get to a Hamilton where there's 600 students. So you are absolutely right. It is a district strategic pilot for that small setting for those 7 days.
Thank you for that question. And just so you know, board members did voice, several of them yesterday voiced the concern that we not piecemeal this, that we don't go classroom by classroom just because there are fewer people in one than in another. We really want all of our students to have the same opportunity to have more time in person should their families choose that. So
with that 7 days, I think you can do the math.
Yes, we
the
can
rollout
manage
will be for all 10 schools.
Right. I was just going to say, I appreciate Dr. Savage, you understanding what we were saying in those comments, and also making it a learning opportunity so that we don't go backwards. That is not something we want to do. And our entire mode of operating is to do deliberative decision making, so that not knee-jerk anything. We're doing things based on the data that we can get, so that we make decisions that can last. So with that, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight and sharing your concerns, your thoughts. We really do appreciate hearing them. And while you might not see an exact answer to your exact question from time to time, do know that all of those concerns are being weighed in the balance with all the perspectives that have to be taken into account. So we will get through all of this together and really try to do what's best for all of our students. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.